All right, so Bitcoin, huh? It's under $100,000 again, and it seems like everyone's asking the same question.
Yeah, is now the time to buy?
Right. Like,
Yeah.
is this the dip we've all been waiting for? I mean, crazy to think it almost hit $100,000.
Yeah.
But today we're going deeper,
Yeah.
past the headlines and all the hype.
Definitely. Got to cut through the noise.
Exactly, and I've got just the person to help us with that.
Well, let's see what we can uncover.
I'm so glad you could join me for this deep dive.
Happy to be here.
All right, so, we always like to start with a good source, and this time you shared a really interesting article with me.
Yeah, I thought this one was particularly timely given all the buzz about Bitcoin lately.
For sure. It's from The Motley Fool, published December 11th by Ryan Vanzo.
Mm-hmm.
And he's actually making a pretty bullish case for Bitcoin, even with the price, dipping below $100,000 again.
Right. And, it's Motley Fool. They're usually in it for the long game, right?
Exactly.
So that makes his perspective even more interesting, I think.
Definitely. So today, our mission is to figure this out. Should you buy Bitcoin at this price?
It's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Well, maybe more like a Bitcoin question.
Uh-huh. Fair enough.
So let's break it down and see what we can learn.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so first off, we can't ignore, the elephant in the room, right?
Oh, you mean the fact that Bitcoin's had an absolutely insane ride?
Exactly. Think about it. Back in 2009, it was practically worthless.
Worth pennies.
And now we've seen it almost hit six figures.
It's mind-boggling, really.
For sure. That's one heck of an investment story.
Absolutely. But that's also where we need to be cautious. Past performance, it doesn't guarantee future returns.
Oh, definitely.
So we have to look deeper. Ask the tough questions. What really gives Bitcoin value? Is it all hype? Or is there something more fundamental going on?
Right. And that's where this article, I think it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Banzo argues that Bitcoin could actually be a store of value, like gold. So, something that holds intrinsic worth no matter what. But the question is, how can a digital currency, something that only exists online,
Right.
how can that be like gold?
It's a really fascinating comparison. I mean, gold, it's held value for centuries,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's rare, it's durable, and it has this universally recognized significance.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, can Bitcoin, in this digital age, achieve a similar status?
Right. And Vanzo seems to think it can.
Okay, interesting.
He points out that gold's market cap is massive, like $18 trillion. Huge.
Wow.
Bitcoin's is under $2 trillion.
So big difference.
Yeah. So if Bitcoin were to even reach, a fraction of gold's value,
What I'm talking about.
potentially over 900% growth.
Yeah, but, and I think this is crucial, we got to be realistic here. That kind of growth, it's a long-term perspective.
Definitely not a get-rich-quick scheme.
No, we're talking decades, not a quick flip.
Exactly. Patience is key.
For sure.
And Vanzo also says that Bitcoin is a proven concept. He thinks it's likely to be around for, our lifetimes.
Well, and there are reasons to think that might be true, right? Bitcoin is decentralized. It's not controlled by any single government or institution.
Right.
And we're seeing more and more businesses, even some countries, starting to accept it as payment. That growing acceptance definitely suggests that Bitcoin has some staying power.
Okay, so that makes sense. But you know what I keep thinking about? All the craziness happening in the world right now.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's a lot.
I mean, between, all the geopolitical stuff, the worries about inflation, climate change, it's kind of, unsettling,
Absolutely. There's definitely a lot of uncertainty in the air. Makes you wonder how to protect what you've earned, right?
Totally. And that actually brings us to another point that Vanzo makes in the article. He talks about Bitcoin as a hedge against uncertainty.
Ah, interesting. So like a safe haven asset.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's not tied to any single country's economy.
Makes it potentially less vulnerable to things like, crazy inflation or political turmoil.
Right. It's almost like having an escape hatch, just in case things really go south.
Yeah, I can see the appeal.
But one thing I noticed, the article doesn't really talk about regulations.
That's a good point.
I know different countries are still figuring out what to do about Bitcoin, right?
Definitely. Regulations are evolving, and it's something to keep an eye on for sure. Because
Yeah.
it could definitely impact how we use and trade Bitcoin in the future.
Yeah. I guess we'll have to see how that all plays out.
Exactly. But I think for a lot of people, that decentralized nature, that's still a big part of the appeal.
Okay, so let's get into something a little more technical.
Okay, sounds good.
Vanzo talks about the decreasing inflation rate of Bitcoin.
Right.
Can you maybe break that down for our listener?
Sure. So Bitcoin, It's designed very differently from traditional currencies. Like, governments can just print more money whenever they want.
Yeah.
But with Bitcoin, the rate in which new coins are created, it actually decreases over time.
Really?
Yeah, and eventually it'll hit zero.
Hmm.
Like, no more new Bitcoin will be created.
Huh. So that built-in scarcity.
That's a major reason why some people think Bitcoin will hold its value over the long haul.
So it's almost like a digital gold rush, but the gold's getting harder and harder to find.
Exactly. And they even have a name for these cycles. They're called halving cycles.
The halving cycles.
Yeah, they're like pre-programmed events that happen roughly every 4 years. And basically, it just cuts the rate of new Bitcoin creation in half.
Interesting.
And so it creates this natural constraint on the supply, which can really drive up the price.
Wow, that's pretty fascinating. Okay, so we've talked about why Bitcoin might be a good investment, but now let's get into the how.
Right, the practical side of things.
Yeah, the article kind of touches on this, but I want to make it like really relevant to our listener, you know?
Because it's all about making this information actionable.
Exactly. So here's the question. Are you comfortable managing your own digital wallet? Like, do you feel good about, navigating the whole technical side of crypto? Or are you looking for a simpler, less hands-on approach?
Because there are definitely different paths you can take. Vanzo mentions a few. Like, you could buy Bitcoin directly and store it yourself.
Okay.
That gives you maximum control, but it does require, some technical know-how.
Right.
Then there are centralized exchanges, like, Coinbase is a popular one. They're much more user-friendly, but they come with their own considerations. Things like fees and their security policies.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then I think he also mentioned Bitcoin ETF.
Right. That's another option.
Right.
Those let you basically invest in Bitcoin indirectly through the stock market.
Right. So there are definitely options for everyone,
Right, for sure.
Like whether you're, tech savvy and ready to dodge deep, or you prefer something, more hands off, really comes down to how much risk you're comfortable with, how comfortable you are with like the tech side of things, and how involved you want to be with managing your investments.
Makes sense.
So I feel like we've covered a lot today.
We have, yeah.
We talked about Bitcoin's potential as a store of value. We discussed its possible role as a hedge against all the uncertainty in the world, and even dug into some of the more technical aspects.
Like those halving cycles.
Right. Pretty cool. So what are your thoughts? I mean, after diving into all of this, does it make you lean towards buying Bitcoin? Or are you maybe feeling a little hesitant?
Well, to be honest, there's one thing that kind of sticks out to me. Something Vanzo doesn't really address in the article.
Oh, what's that?
The risks.
Right, because it can't all be sunshine and roses, right?
Exactly. There are two sides to every coin, as they say.
True.
So, first off, volatility. We all know Bitcoin's price can swing like crazy, even in a single day.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That can be pretty nerve-wracking for any investor.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Then there's the whole regulatory landscape, which is, still a bit of a moving target, like how governments decide to regulate Bitcoin. That could have a big impact on its future.
Makes sense.
And then, of course, there's security risks.
Oh, right.
We've all seen those stories about exchanges getting hacked, people losing their Bitcoin because of scams.
Yeah, that's definitely something to be aware of.
It is. It is.
So not exactly a risk-free investment.
Definitely not. Just like any other investment, there are risks involved.
Right. And I think it's super important to say this again. We are not financial advisors.
Oh, definitely not.
This deep dive, it's all about giving you the information, the different perspectives, so you can make your own informed decision about Bitcoin.
Exactly. We're just trying to empower you to, navigate this whole world.
Right. This world that can be exciting, but also kind of complex.
It is, for sure.
Well, I think we've given our listener a lot to think about today.
I think so, yeah.
The potential rewards, they're definitely out there, but so are those risks.
Right. And I think that's where, critical thinking really comes into play. You got to weigh the evidence. Think about your own financial goals, how much risk you're willing to take.
Yeah.
And then make a decision that feels right for you.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
So on that note, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the world of Bitcoin. It's a fascinating topic, and we've honestly just scratched the surface.
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's always more to learn.
But hopefully we've sparked some curiosity.
Giving you some food for thought.
Exactly. Keep learning, keep asking questions.
The world of finance, it's constantly changing, so stay curious, stay informed, and stay tuned for what the future holds.
That's the best advice I think anyone can give. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.